What's going on? Welcome everybody into Saw's War. My name is Dustin. It is a great day to talk about wrestling because this weekend we have not one, but two big WWE shows. We have Money in the Bank on Saturday and NXT Heatwave to close out the weekend on Sunday, coming from Toronto, Canada. But before we get into the predictions and previews and everything for that, just want to hit on a few big stories from throughout the week in AEW and WWE. So we'll run through that really quick and then hit the previews. Bit of a shorter episode this week, I'm guessing. I hope everyone had a safe and good 4th of July and is enjoying an extended weekend and is ready to kick back and sit back and watch a couple, hopefully, really good wrestling shows. Starting with AEW first, the biggest news, I think, is the return of Ultra Heel MJF at the end of Dynamite. He was in Daniel Garcia's corner for his match versus Will Ospreay, and end of the match comes, Will Ospreay defeats Daniel Garcia. Garcia crying, upset in the ring, just inconsolable. Ospreay leaves. MJF comes in to be like, "Oh, you did good. It's okay." Boom, low blow, and then like the longest, most drawn out beatdown that I can remember. Like it felt like he beat him down for like the last 10 minutes of the overrun into like the next hour of TV. He bloodied him up with the ring. He hit a pile driver from the middle rope that led to Garcia being wheeled out on a stretcher, like the whole 9 yards. He absolutely. And then Ospreay tried to come back after the match and tried to, defend Daniel Garcia, leading to MJF going through the crowd, which, if you know anything about MJF and the crowd, is like one of the riskiest things in the world, because people, for whatever reason, when MJF goes into the crowd as a heel, they hate him. There are people just getting in his face. He threw he emptied a trash can at part of the section. He was knocking drinks over. Like, it looks like we're all the way back with this heel MJF, and I don't think it could have come any faster. Like, the whole babyface MJF was good while it lasted, and then Adam Cole got hurt, and then he got hurt, and they couldn't have their feud, and it's kind of pointless to have MJF as a face running around right now trying to do good guy things when it's so clear that the story is that he's jealous of everyone that's kind of moved on and established themselves while he's been out. So I'm really interested to see. He's going to open Collision this coming Saturday, which I'm guessing is probably going to be, hot fire again, because there's just something about MJF as a heel that unlocks everything that he can do in a way that just being a babyface didn't. And that's not to say it was an unsuccessful run. I think proving that he could be the top babyface in the company was a huge thing, because before, with the heat he was getting and how hated he was anytime he walked into the arena, it was hard to conceive him as a babyface top of the card champion. And so the fact that he did it, it shows just how talented and charismatic he is. But I think we're gearing up for something good with this second heel run, because he needs something to do it All In. And whether that's a match with Will Ospreay, whether it's the match that's been teased with Daniel Garcia, triple threat or something, who knows. But I'm very excited to have this MJF back, and I think it adds a element to their product weekly that they have been missing, I think, probably since he turned face, to be honest. So that was the biggest thing to come out of this week's Dynamite. There was one other thing that really surprised me, which is that there was no Swerve Strickland on this broadcast. Coming off of the first defeat in Will Ospreay's AEW career, Swerve was not on the show. We had a 2-segment Learning Tree Chris Jericho commentary for a match segment, and I don't know, then we got backstage and watched them beat up Hook again. I don't know what the logic is there to not have your champion on the show after, when he just picked up the biggest win of his title reign so far, and the most legitimizing win of his title reign. So it just felt like a huge missed opportunity. I don't understand why they would not capitalize on that and have him out for a promo, or have him out for, whatever the next direction might be. It just felt really weird to have him pull off such a big win and then not be there. We also had a few more wrestlers punch their spots in the finals for the Owen Hart Cup tournament. On the men's side, Bryan Danielson beat Pac in a really good one-on-one match. And then on the women's side, in kind of surprising fashion, Willow Nightingale beat Chris Statlander in their first match since Statlander turned heel and has been really beating her up and laying her out every time they've like crossed paths. And I'm a little surprised. I thought this was a Chris Statlander win all the way to kind of continue to establish this heel character. So I'm surprised that they're going with Willow. And then tonight on Rampage, Mariah May won to clinch her spot in the finals. So next week on Dynamite, it will be Willow versus Mariah May in what is probably going to be a great match. I think Mariah May is the stronger story. Her heading into a match with Toni Storm at All In. But who knows? Willow is, I say it every week, is just the most, like, the epitome of babyface that the crowd just loves. So I could see her winning too. Like, I really don't know. I think it's interesting. And then Saturday on Collision, we are going to get the other half of the men's final. It will be a returning Hangman Adam Page versus Jay White, which both of those guys against Danielson would be awesome. Honestly, I think either one is going to be good. It looks like it's setting up to Hangman, which he came out like a crusher of dreams on Wednesday in his return. They had done these like 2 weeks of like really heartfelt, nice, sympathetic Jeff Jarrett promos about how much Owen Hart meant to him and what winning and being in the tournament and all of that meant to him. And it was like so nice and endearing. The crowd was fully behind him. And then Hangman was the wild card and he returned and just pummeled. It was a really smart way to kind of fully establish Hangman as a heel and kind of get that like welcome back pop fizzled out as quickly as it could. I think it took like a minute, maybe 90 seconds for Hangman to turn all of the cheers into boos. So it looks like we're going to be into for something special here with this Hangman heel run as well. And honestly, Jeff Jarrett, one of the best performances he's had. He had the crowd fully behind him. Everything he did, they were popping for. It was really, really well done. It was one of, I think, the best matches he's had since he started appearing in AEW. Two other quick things on the AEW side before I run through a couple WWE things. And that is one, there was a lot of talk this week about Swerve beating Will Ospreay at Forbidden Door and what that meant and why they did that match so early when it felt like it should be the all-in main event in London. And apparently, according to Fightful, Will Ospreay was the one who came up with the idea. It was his idea to lose to Swerve because Swerve is the champion and he didn't like the thought that people just thought Swerve was a lame duck waiting for All In where Ospreay could be coronated, essentially. And who knows how true that is. It's important to note that it was not Will Ospreay that said this. It was a report through Fightful, and they did not quote Ospreay directly or anything like that. So I don't think he's just around telling everybody this was his idea. But it's really interesting. It's a good thought for the business, and it's the type of thing that like a company like that needs, where there's someone who, you know, has been presented as such a big deal, and he has this undefeated streak in the company, and, you know, every match he's putting on is getting, you know, crazy praise and 5 stars or better and anything else. But to have him be willing to lose because the champion needs to be the top guy, it needs to feel the top guy, feel like the top guy, is a great mindset for basically everyone to have. And I mean, his match with Swerve, I think, was 5.5 stars or 5 3/4, something like that. It just came out. So every time he goes out there, basically, he's having what is being perceived as a 5-star match by some people. Some people hate him. I see so much discourse online. But this type of mindset is really cool, and it's really, really refreshing to hear. And I think they did that. I think it really did add a bit to Swerve, and that's why I'm so surprised that he just wasn't on the show right after. Like, I don't know why he was not on this Dynamite. I can't say it enough. The other thing to come out of the AEW rumor mill this week was that Mercedes Moné had an airport meeting / conversation with Shane McMahon at LaGuardia Airport as they were leaving on different flights. And apparently they exchanged phone numbers and pleasantries, and that was that. That's all really that we know. But Shane McMahon has apparently been expressing interest in joining AEW or appearing for them at least. And this, of course, just adds so much more gasoline to the fire for the rumor mill. I cannot fathom what Shane McMahon in AEW would look like, which means it's probably going to happen at some point. Like, watch him be the Will Ospreay match for All In or something crazy like that. Like, I can't even imagine what it would be. But the fact that the two of them were photographs talking and all the reports coming out saying it was a super positive conversation, like, who knows at this point? It's legitimate enough to give attention to, but again, I'm gonna take a completely like I'll believe it when I see it type of approach. Over on WWE, everything is building towards Money in the Bank and towards NXT Heatwave, so I'm gonna just save most of it for the previews and the predictions. But a couple quick things on Raw. We had another Wyatt Six segment that included Nikki Cross giving Michael Cole a videotape, and then the videotape containing an interview with Bo Dallas and Uncle Howdy. And if you have not seen this one or the one that they did the week before, these segments are amazing. They're not doing anything like super unpredictable, but it's building the foundation for this storyline and for this faction in a way that I think is really smart. And this one was all about Bo Dallas, kind of what his purpose was and what the group's purpose was and what they were doing. And it revealed, of course, that Bo Dallas and Uncle Howdy are the same person, which, again, not like groundbreaking things that people did not see coming, but really smart and really well done to establish what this group is going to be. So if you have not seen that promo or that video segment, whatever you want to call it, I really cannot recommend that one and the first one from 2 weeks ago enough, because it is clear that they have a pretty good idea of what this is going to be and what the direction is going to be. And I think that that's a huge, huge boost to everything with the story. I think a lot of times these types of stories can feel like bogged down or like, okay, they're just doing the same things. It's directionless. What do we do? And this has not felt like that at all. It's still methodically paced. So if you don't like the slower paced things, this may not be the storyline for you. But I appreciate all of the care and the craft that has gone into it so far. So through like 3 weeks so far, I'm completely sold and ready to see like what the next week is. And then on SmackDown tonight, we have new tag team champions. We have new SmackDown tag team champions. As DIY beat A-Town Down Under to win the WWE SmackDown tag team titles for the first time in Toronto, which is where they won the NXT takeover, or the NXT tag titles for the first time. So just a milestone arena for those guys. And those guys, I love Johnny Gargano and Ciampa. I think the two of them, whether they're teaming up or they're rivals, just know each other so well, and they know how to tell a story so well, that to see them get to this moment on SmackDown with the crowd completely behind them, it was just awesome. I don't know what this means for A-Town Down Under and if they're going to go their separate ways, if this Austin Theory babyface push that's been getting teased is going to actually happen. I think if they're going to do that, throwing him in with Gargano and Ciampa and Indy Hartwell and Candice LeRae and just running back the way is probably the way to do it, because Austin Theory is extremely underrated with his comedic timing. So if you're going to try to get him over with the crowd, I think probably the smoothest way for you to do it and to see the best possible results. All right, here we go. We've got WWE Money in the Bank on Saturday, followed by NXT Heatwave on Sunday, which is a little weird. I'm so used to it being the other way around, and like the NXT show being the tone setter for the weekend, and then the main show like hammering it home. And then lately it's been, different weekends. Like NXT has not been running on WWE weekends and vice versa. So they've been given their own time to be their own thing. So running it this way, I'm really interested to see if anything from Saturday informs Sunday in the way of booking. Like there's a match on the Money in the Bank card with the stipulation that if Seth Rollins loses, he can't challenge for the title as long as Damian Priest is the champion. And then on NXT on Sunday, Wes Lee is challenging Obafemi for the North American Championship, and if Wes Lee loses, he can no longer challenge for the title while Obafemi is the champion. So I'm sure they won't be booked exactly the same, but I'm just curious to see if there's anything like that, and if there's any type of like overlapping with the way things unfold. First up, we have Money in the Bank on Saturday with 5 matches scheduled, which the order of these matches is probably going to be super telling if I had to guess. Usually, if the Money in the Bank match is happening early on in the show, then you can kind of maybe expect a cash in to come later in the show if there's a title match, or vice versa. Maybe, it means there's going to be a bigger surprise winner for the Money in the Bank match. If it's happening at the end of the show, or there's a big return coming or something like that. You think about when Brock Lesnar surprised everyone and destroyed Mustafa Ali at the end of the Money in the Bank when everyone thought Ali had it won. So you never know with this. So I think the card layout is going to be extremely important. I'm going in the order that Wikipedia has it. This isn't set in stone, I don't think. So we'll see. But first listed, we have the men's Money in the Bank ladder match with Jey Uso, Carmelo Hayes, Andrade, Chad Gable, LA Knight, and Drew McIntyre. This is like the most interesting blend of top stars and mid-carders that I can remember. I think usually it's like one or the other. It's like, here's all the athletic guys. Here's all the mid-card guys that need to get pushed to that next level. Here's all the established guys, and one of them's going to win it. So this really feels like a pretty varied field, and I don't know who could win. Like, looking at this list right out of the gate, I would think that Carmelo Hayes and Andrade are probably the two that are least likely to win, but are also probably most likely to steal the match, like, with their performances. I could see the fans getting behind either one of those guys just based on what they do in this match. But the other thing I've been thinking about is, what does this match look like from an interference standpoint? So, like, when I think about the Money in the Bank match, there's some times where people interfere, there's sometimes where it gets a little dicey, but I don't remember there being a match where there were this many storylines on the outside that could converge and impact this match. So, like, looking at it, so Chad Gable has been apparently one of the early targets of the Wyatt Six these first 2 weeks, so they could make an appearance here. There were all sorts of rumors that they were going to go after Jey Uso first, and that was why Uso was doing the Fireflies in his entrance, as like a tease to that. So they could pop up and start something with him. That's two people right there. LA Knight is in a feud with Logan Paul that a lot of people think is building towards a match at SummerSlam. So maybe LA Knight gets interfered with, maybe Logan Paul makes a run in, and then Drew McIntyre, I think, has the feud of the year right now with CM Punk going. We haven't seen CM Punk since Drew McIntyre beat him up in Chicago in front of his hometown. And this was the perfect spot for CM Punk to come running in and push Drew McIntyre off the ladder, and now we go, like, towards SummerSlam. That's 4 of the 6 right there. And that would leave Andrade and Carmelo Hayes as the 2 that would be left uninterrupted. So I really don't know. I have a really hard time kind of predicting where this is going to go. And one thing that I keep thinking about is Drew McIntyre winning and CM Punk interfering, because Drew McIntyre on Monday won his triple threat match to qualify, and afterwards basically said, I'm going to win the Money in the Bank. I'm going to cash that thing in Saturday night, and I'm walking out with the title. I'm going to cash it in on whoever wins, Priest versus Seth Rollins, and that's that. So I cannot get this thought out of my head that Drew McIntyre wins, goes to cash in, cashes in the briefcase and turns it into a match, and then gets screwed by CM Punk and loses, and now he's lost the briefcase and lost the title, and there we go, full steam ahead into war with CM Punk. I really don't know. It's such an odd spot, because I have another thought completely different for what that Drew Seth match might look, or for what that Damian Priest Seth match might look like later in the card without any of that involved at all. So this is the most convoluted Money in the Bank that I can remember in a while in terms of trying to pick a winner. So I'm going to say Drew McIntyre. I'm going to say Money in the Bank starts the show, or the men's Money in the Bank starts the show, and Drew McIntyre wins, and then it factors in later. But if another match starts the show and the Money in the Bank match for the men is not like one of the first 2, then give me Chad Gable. Don't know why, but just give me Chad Gable. Didn't win the IC title in 5 tries, 6 tries. Had everyone abandon him. Is teasing something with the Creeds and Ivy Nile. Like, here we go. He didn't win the IC title because he's actually going to get the Money in the Bank, and he's going to be a shock the world champion that launches him into the stratosphere and creates the Kurt Angle comparisons even more. There we go. Next listed, we have the women's Money in the Bank ladder match with Io Sky, Chelsea Green, Lyra Valkyria, Tiffany Stratton, Naomi, and Zoe Stark. And again, this is a great blend of wrestlers who could use this briefcase. Io Sky won it last year and ended up becoming women's champion on SmackDown for a large part of the year. So I don't know if she'll win again. I can't see her being a back-to-back champion, but her in this type of match is always going to be a show stealer. So I'm sure there's big things planned just by having her in this match. And then, I don't know, because looking at it, I would think Chelsea Green is the natural choice to win, because she's probably the character that can do the most with it. Like, I can really see her accessorizing the briefcase and carrying it around and making it a thing, and all the comedy and stuff that they can get out of, her trying and failing to cash in the briefcase. I could see it, and I think she's the only one who could sell that. The only other choice that I'm thinking is Tiffany Stratton, because she kind of seems like she's the next one up, basically. Like, she seems like she's being, like, built up to become one of those top women's champions. And I can picture an all-pink briefcase so easily. I can picture them selling it. I can picture her walking around with a bedazzled pink briefcase. Like, it's so easy to imagine. And then part of me also kind of thinks Naomi. For no reason other than the match with Bayley and the tension that would create with her and Bayley and, like, their friendship and everything. Like, I think that could be an interesting story to play out. But I don't know. I'm torn between Chelsea Green and Tiffany Stratton. So I'm going to say Chelsea Green, and I'm going to say she holds on to it for a while, and we get, like, a Damian Priest type run with the briefcase where it's just how many ways can she fail to cash it in before she finally gets that moment. Next up is the aforementioned Damian Priest defending the World Heavyweight Championship against Seth Rollins. And if Seth loses, he can no longer challenge for that belt while Priest is the champion. And if Priest loses, he must leave the Judgment Day, which is such an interesting, specific stipulation that it's probably not going to happen. So here's my thought on all of this. I've been thinking about this a lot since this stipulation was added. So Seth Rollins being the champion going into SummerSlam with a match with Gunther makes a lot of sense from a headline standpoint, but it's kind of like a foregone conclusion, or it feels like a foregone conclusion, that at SummerSlam, Gunther is going to win. And he's probably going to win in, like, a dominating fashion to solidify he's here at the top of the card. This is his time now. And I just can't see that guy being Seth Rollins, because I think Seth Rollins at SummerSlam is too important a match to use like that. So I'm thinking about Damian Priest winning with help from the Judgment Day, and then the Judgment Day turns on Priest and kicks him out in, like, you were totally fine with putting your spot up, then you don't deserve a spot. And we accelerate this Judgment Day breakup that much faster. We get it going. And then, if Drew McIntyre wins, there is a beaten Damian Priest in the middle of the ring. He can come out and try to cash in. Then that makes CM Punk screwing him out of cashing in that much more embarrassing and effective, because Priest would, for all intents and purposes, be completely incapacitated. And it would be like, you couldn't even cash in on a knocked out dude. Like, how lame are you? Like, I can just picture what those promos would start to sound like. So I think if the end game goal is Gunther destroys Priest and establishes himself as a world champion, Seth Rollins is in another high profile SummerSlam match with maybe someone like a new signee or something, or another person that we can't think of at this point, and Drew McIntyre and CM Punk is a full-on, like, blood feud, basically. That match is about to be a war. I think that's probably the most effective way to lay the groundwork for all of those things at once. That's a long-winded answer to get to. I think Damian Priest wins, But I think Damian Priest wins, and that is why. I do think this will be a good match, and I'm very excited to see what Seth Rollins looks like after being gone for a few months. Next up, we have the IC title match between Sami Zayn and Braun Breaker, which is probably the hardest one to pick, honestly, out of everything, because I could see it both ways. It's in Toronto, it's going to be a huge ovation and crowd behind Sami Zayn, and Braun Breaker has been getting built up as this ass kicker, this world beater, and him going into Toronto and destroying Sami Zayn and walking out with the title, his first title on the main roster, feels like a pretty big, good moment for him and a pretty establishing moment for him. But Sami Zayn's whole character being, I'm never going to give up, I'm the heart and soul, like, complicates any of these matches, because that was the Gunther story, was Gunther was going to just destroy him to the point that he couldn't walk, but he was like, hey, I'm still here. So I don't know if they'll run it back structurally the same way that they did with the Gunther match at WrestleMania, but I just have such a hard time picking Braun Breaker because I've seen it so many times with Sami Zayn. That's his character, that's his spot. So, all of that to say, I'm going to pick Braun Breaker because I think it's the chance to do a shocking thing with a title changing hands to someone that we don't expect, that immediately launches Braun into another level of legitimacy and establishes him as one of the guys on Raw, which I think is a smart thing to do with a young, talented star like this. Then that, if Sami wins, I'm not going to be surprised. I'll probably clip this and put, the clown music behind it or something. But I'm going to say Braun Breaker. And lastly, listed as the main event is the 6-man tag team match between the Bloodline, which will be some combination of Solo Sikoa, Tama Tonga, Jacob Fatu, and Tonga Loa versus Cody Rhodes and the Super Friends, Randy Orton, and Kevin Owens. This Bloodline 2.0 has really picked up a bit recently, with them destroying Paul Heyman last week and the debut of Jacob Fatu, who calling him the Samoan Werewolf and giving him a sick shirt and having him jump off of the turnbuckles through tables and all this stuff. Like, what a good way to bring him in and endear him to people immediately. Like, how can you hate someone with the nickname the Samoan Werewolf? His shirt is his shirt in the shop is incredible. Like, they have just gotten everything right about his presentation, and it's a bummer because I don't think he can wrestle in Canada, so I don't know if he's going to be there. So it might be Tongaloa, Solo Sikoa, and Tama Tonga, which is a bummer, but still, this Bloodline feud, the Bloodline 2.0, was really picked up a bit in recent weeks, and it's all building towards Roman Reigns' return. Who knows if it will be Saturday night at Money in the Bank, if we will get his return, his first appearance. They did decimate Paul Heyman. That might be the final straw. I think SummerSlam's too big of a show to not have Roman Reigns there. And I don't know if they would wait and have him return at the end of SummerSlam, because I would think you would want the extra eyes from, like, him having an announced match or appearance. But we'll see. I think this is a match that the Bloodline wins, and I think it starts to set things into motion with Roman's return, with a potential Solo Sikoa Cody Rhodes title match, or a potential Randy Orton turns on Cody Rhodes and wants the title and costs his team the match. I really don't know, but I think this is pointing to a Bloodline 2.0 win. If this is the true main event, I could see, Randy Orton standing over Cody Rhodes with Michael Cole, like, why'd you do it? Or I could see the Bloodline all standing with the fingers up and leaving a pile of destruction in their wake. I think either way, whatever they decide to do is going to set up a lot of intrigue for SummerSlam. And I think after this show, SummerSlam as a whole is going to look a lot clearer as well. Lastly, we have NXT Heatwave happening on Sunday. Close out a busy weekend of wrestling here with 6 more matches, 1 pre-show, 5 main card, which we will go Wikipedia order as usual. We have first up on the pre-show, Carmen Petrovic and Ariana Grace teaming up to take on JC Jane and Jasmine Nix. Grace and Carmen are from Toronto, so this is a big moment for them. They kind of like the odd couple tag team. They had that moment this last week on NXT to kind of come together and be like, okay, well, now we're on the card at least. So this is an interesting one, but I think we're going to go with Carmen Petrovic and Ariana Grace picking up the win and getting that feel-good moment to end the pre-show into the main show, which will apparently kick off with Nathan Frazier and Axiom defending the NXT tag titles against Chase U, Andre Chase, and Duke Hudson, with Riley Osborne and Thea Hale in their corner because they told Ridge Holland, don't come around because you've been cheating and we don't win matches like that. This is so many stories like coming together in one. This Ridge Holland needs purpose story. This Duke Hudson is the man of integrity story. This Nathan Frazier is too focused on things that aren't the NXT tag titles story. All of it is coming to a head here, and I feel like there's no way for it to end other than Chase University winning the titles, either by going full heel and embracing the Ridge Holland philosophy, or Ridge Holland comes back and redeems himself, or Axiom gets frustrated and turns on Nathan Frazier and just gives up, like, you don't care anymore, so whatever. I can't really imagine a heel Axiom, so I think that's probably a little unlikely, but I feel like this has to be a Chase U win, so I will say Chase U becomes 2-time champions here. Next up, we have Kalani Jordan defending the NXT Women's North American title against Sol Ruca in what will probably be a very fun match, but I feel like Kalani Jordan retains here because this is too early on in her reign, and Sol Ruca, as good and as exciting as she is to watch at the ring, does not feel quite like she's fully there yet. She had a match this last week where she was kind of the one leading the way, and it felt like there was a lot of things that were missed or a little sloppy. And that's not, to say anything bad or negative. I just feel like Kalani Jordan in this role establishing the title makes a lot of sense. I think they'll have a good match, but I think Kalani retains. Next up, we have Oba Femi defending the NXT North American Championship against Wes Lee, with the stipulation that I mentioned earlier. If Oba Femi wins, Wes Lee can never challenge for the NXT title again as long as Oba Femi is the champion. I really don't know with this one, because Wes Lee not challenging for that title and going after other things makes a lot of sense and sounds like a lot of fun. I would like to see him in the main event picture sooner rather than later as well, because I think he is absolutely that talented. The thing that stops me from picking Wes Lee here, and the reason I'm going to go with Oba Femi, is because I can't imagine what happens next for Oba Femi, because if he loses, then he needs something next that legitimizes him again and is a step up from the NXT North American Championship, which would be the main NXT title. And I don't think he would immediately go from losing to Wes Lee to challenging for the NXT title and winning that outright. So I really don't know what they would do, and I don't think he's going to the main roster anytime soon. So I think booking someone after the fact when they've been a dominant force all the way through so far, I think that's a really tough spot to be in. And I don't think that there's a spot for him to go that isn't a dominating force, like coming off of a loss. So I think Oba Femi retains, but I do think this will probably be the match of the night, because I think Wes Lee and Oba Femi will have unbelievable chemistry. We have Roxanne Perez next, defending the NXT Women's title against Lola Vice. Their promo this last week on NXT was a little messy. It was a little all over the place, but I'm still really excited to see this match. I think this is a little harder to tell what's going to happen now that it doesn't seem like Julia will be wrestling Roxanne at the next pay-per-view, since she is recovering still from wrist surgery. But I don't know, because this feels like Lola Vice needs this to cap off this run that she's been on and this story she's been telling and the way she's been endearing herself to fans. But it also feels like Roxanne, just kind of can't lose. It feels like she's so established and entrenched right now as the champion that, they kind of need her to stay the champion, because the work she's doing has been very good week in and week out. So, I don't know. I think Roxanne Perez retains. But I feel a little more torn on this in the moment than I was expecting. I think they put on a great match, and I think Lola Vice proves that she can work that main event type level, but I just don't think she's winning quite yet. And finally, our main event is a fatal 4-way match for the NXT title with Trick Williams, Javon Evans, Ethan Page, and Shawn Spears. Now, I know what I would like to see happen, and I don't think either of the things I would like to see happen are going to, which are an Ethan Page title win or a Javon Evans title win. I think Javon Evans is incredible. I think the way that they've presented him and the way he's immediately come onto the scene and just shown out has been awesome. But I think this is a Trick Williams retains situation. The Fatal 4-Way match always kind of tends to have that finish where the champion somehow overcomes the odds. And I think this run that Trick Williams has been on and the way that he's been established is just, it's not over yet. It's not ready to come to an end yet. I think if I had to pick one person to win that would be interesting to see storyline-wise, it would be Javon Evans, because I think the story of a younger guy beating Trick and Trick being like, am I already too old? Has the game already passed me by? What is happening? I think that could be an interesting story, whether that pushes him into a heel turn before he gets the call up or what it's going to be. But honestly, I think the summer of Trick continues, and I think he wins clean and we move on to whatever the next story will be. I really think it's going to be a fun show. I think the NXT brand as a whole has been on fire lately, and their shows, their PLEs have been, incredible and extremely well booked, basically for the last, as long as I can remember. So I think this will be a great way to cap off the weekend. So let me know what you're most excited to see from either day, honestly, from any of these shows. What match you're looking forward to the most, or what you hope to see happen in either of these shows. Hit the comments. I will put an email address in the description and show notes as well if you would prefer to send in an email. If this is your first time hearing the podcast, watching this video, anything like that at all, please subscribe on YouTube, anywhere you get your podcasts, anything like that at all. It does help a lot, and I appreciate it greatly. I hope everyone had a great 4th of July. I hope everyone's ready for a good weekend of wrestling, and I hope you all enjoy the shows.